Hey everybody, Tony D with another hot take on Antifa. I keep talking about it. It's a subject that endlessly fascinates me because just keep watching these Antifa videos, and you see these kids and they're just possessed. They're screaming at the cops, pulling down these statues, doing insane things, and they're going to jail. So a question in my mind is, what can we do to help? Not help Antifa, but sort of help this situation. There's not much. If you watch my previous video, I told you stay away from Antifa, right? They're a very scary bunch. They're a mob. But Antifa is coming from somewhere. So if you have a college-age kid or a kid between the ages, say like 16 and 25, I would say, maybe even as high as 30 or early 30s, and you know that they're engaged in this nonsense, that you know they're socialist, communist, or whatever, you as a family member can help by talking to them. Understand that they've been sucked into a cult, or could be. And Antifa is like a cult, and they encourage people to disengage from their families, like a lot of cults do. They're against the traditional family. They think it's wrong. They think the nuclear family is awful and damaging to people. They would rather have the state raise you because that would make everyone equal in some weird way. So if you have a college-age kid or a kid that could be the age of Antifa, if you see that they have a black hoodie, if you hear that they talk a lot online about communism, or they're very anti-capitalist, you might want to sit them down and talk to them and see if you can kind of deprogram them. See if you can make them understand the path that they're going down. Understand the Antifa members are reaching the point where they're going to start turning into a criminal organization. I've said this before. And part of that recruitment will be cutting the new members off from their families and other friends that aren't in Antifa, that don't believe this. That's what cults do. You cut them off from anybody who could talk them out of doing stuff. You essentially ruin them to the point where you're their savior, right? In the world of the mafia, usually the recruited guys have no money. They're desperate for money. Maybe they got a bit of a record. They don't have a lot of job skills. They don't have a lot of good prospects, but working for the mob, they make some money. And there's a certain loyalty there, and they can, up to a point, take care of you when they feel like it or when it's in their interest. But the thing about Antifa is they don't even have that. They don't even have that network of guys. If you get arrested and you go to jail and you're in the mafia, well, you at least have the other mafia guys in jail, and you can sort of congregate with them, and they're a de facto mafia gang while you're in the can, and hopefully, you can survive your prison sentence mostly unscathed because of that, because you're accepted, especially if you're a made guy, right? But in the world of Antifa, they don't have that kind of organization yet, and the people going away for the crimes of, say, attacking statues, you get 10 years in the federal pen. That's a hard bid. I mean, that's a hard bid for a college kid. You might be 18 and you get out before you turn 25, but that'd be a hard 5 or 6 years of your life, and the stuff you'll have to do to survive. Because keep in mind, they may lock up dozens of Antifa members, but they're probably not going to all be in the same prison. It takes a good number of guys to form a usable enough gang to protect each other. And there's already established gangs in the prison system. And a lot of them are Hispanic, because there's a lot of Hispanic gangs, cartel members. There's a lot of black gang members, and there's white supremacist gangs, there's the mafia, there's bikers, there's all sorts of prison cliques that will be more numerous than the guys in Antifa. So you have to impress upon them that it isn't going to be a picnic going to jail, and that the revolution isn't here. You know, a lot of these guys who really buy into it think, well, we're going to abolish the prison system, so what does it matter if I go to prison? The revolution is not here. Joan, prisons are not going away. No. You have to bring them back to reality. At the very least, you have to tell them that, you know, the path they're headed down is going to get them, is going to make them very unpalatable to employers down the road. It can ruin their entire lives. Joan's very upset by it. Joan, stop barking. I'm doing a video. Yes, I'm doing a video. Well, just stand there and be quiet. I have to talk to the dog to keep her from barking, but then I can't do the video. Anyhow, I think it's upon us. You know, I'm in South Jersey, and New Jersey is the sort of place where people live, and then they go to New York and Philadelphia. That was my theory about the riots, that people left New Jersey to go to riot in New York and Philly because New Jersey is a state that recognized Antifa as a terrorist organization. And that's why we didn't really have any riots. We had like one in Atlantic City. But for the most part, it was pretty calm here. In New York and Philly, it was pretty awful. And so if you've got a kid who's going up to New York and he's, you know, coming back with, you know, not stories of getting laid, or not stories of hanging out with his friends, or maybe he does have stories about hanging out with his friends, and he shows up with a new stereo system that he stole out of a store or whatever, you know, you got to really talk to him. And I think it's up to us to kind of talk these kids out of this lifestyle. Now, there's not much you can do in terms of deprogramming, depending on how far gone they are. I mean, they may be so far gone that they may just, you know, disown you and go their merry way and say, well, you don't know what you're doing. I'm tearing down the capitalist system. Just understand that that's going to be a dark path, and you may not be able to help them if they commit some sort of serious crime. The girl in Philadelphia who bombed two police cars, firebombed two police cars, is facing 80 years. 80 years. Now, she's probably not going to be convicted of 80 years, but she's probably going to get 10 or 20. It's a pretty serious crime to throw a Molotov cocktail into a cop car. I mean, that's a serious crime. The two lawyers in New York who threw them at cops, I think there were cops in the car they threw it. They're facing very serious crimes and very serious time. And these people are going to be made examples of. You don't want your kid to be made examples. You got to try to tell them, listen, the leaders of Antifa, where are they when you're doing all this stuff? They're in the background. They don't show up. They're not the ones that are going to throw the Molotov cocktail. They want you to do it because you're the one that'll go to jail. They'll just find some other college kid to throw the next one. You're the one who's going to do the hard time, not them. That's the way criminal gangs often work. The guys on top don't take the risk because that's why they're on top. You know, if I'm the leader of the gang, I assign you to go do things. But in the case of Antifa, they're not even making any money doing this. They are doing it strictly for the political ideology. It will turn to money, but right now it's all about the political ideology. So if you see your kid agreeing with all this crazy crap that's on TV, you might want to check him out and see if he's a member of Antifa. And if he is, you got to try to talk him out of this as best you can, you know. Make them understand that some of these people are going to do serious hard time. And, you know, that's not, there's no revolution. This isn't reality. Donald Trump's not the worst human being who ever lived. He's probably going to be reelected president, and the country will be fine in terms of him. It's not going to be any better or worse. Certainly better than Bush. You could remind him of that. And this idea that, you know, Antifa and BLM have all the answers, point to them at Chaz. At the Chaz, they ended it and then announced, oh, you got everybody go out and vote for Joe Biden. What does that tell you about this entire movement? The Democrats have got their hand in it and they're trying to manipulate it behind the scenes. Now, Antifa thinks, oh, well, we're using the Democrats. Well, at the end of the day, the Democrats will throw you under a bus because they were just using you anyway. They were just using you as long as you were useful, they're not going to go after you. But the moment a guy like Biden gets elected, he will go after you just to prove to everybody, well, I was never with these people. I was never with these people. See all these long prison sentences? I'm going to be tougher than Trump was. That's what he'll do. So you got to talk your kid out of being an Antifa and keep them away from pulling down statues and doing all this nonsense. This isn't a peaceful movement. Antifa has infiltrated it. BLM refuses to oust Antifa, and until they split ties or make it known that they're not going to do any violence, you should keep your kid away from these protests.